We looked up, and there was a huge mothership, spaceship. The biggest I've seen so far, anyway, that I remember with my physical eyes. I mean, five of us were seeing it. It was a flying city with thousands and thousands of windows, lit windows. So I cannot say how big it was, but it was certainly half a mile across, at least.
Wendy's Coffee House, SunBôw, TrueBrother, talking about the mothership with all the windows. That's one of the highlights of this interview. You can check out the website, ScenicSasquatch.com. He also has some books. The Sasquatch Message to Humanity is the one that I have, a conversation with Elder Kamooh. Sit back, relax, get ready for some great stories. Let's go with the background on your first sighting. You know, how old were you when you had an encounter with Sasquatch or Bigfoot?
My first conscious close encounter that I remember, I was 17-year-old. It was in 81 in British Columbia, and we went, 10 young men. We went to the Fraser River, big, powerful river in BC, where we camped. It was just off the Chehalis Reserve, where the Chehalis tribe live, and there's that's the word Sasquatch that is well used nowadays. Actually is derived from their language and the Alco-Melon dialect of the Chehalis people. So to put in context, in space and time, there was 10 of us who went out and camped, and we had no real. Well, we're all young men coming out, starting our lives with no experience and no knowledge. So we just built a big lean-to. And to do so, we stripped, there was a couple small cedars there, and we stripped them to cover our roof. So it was, a little bit of a, invasive approach to go in nature on a native reserve, like just settling, colonizers coming. So what happened is that around in the middle of the night, it must have been around 2-3 in the morning, I'm not sure. It was pitch black, dark night, heavy rain, really pouring rain. And we all heard heavy footfalls coming along the shore through the bush, and came close to our camp, and we all described the similar experience. We had no clue how to explain it then, but we all heard someone talking in our head. Others said in their dreams. It was like a dream because we were asleep, and but it was like, as for myself, I can say I was half asleep. I was in a state of, I heard the footstep, it kind of woke me up, but then I was kind of in a lethargic state, but I heard, like everyone else mentioned there, we heard someone telling us we were not welcome because we did not respect the land. We just came there and to do our own thing without bothering to honor the place or ask permission or anything. And we stripped those 2 small cedars that were standing there. So that are medicine trees, if you know about the cedar virtues. So what happened is that the post was holding our roof, about 6 inches thick, and it just snapped like it was a toothpick. twig and our roof fell on our face in the middle of the night. So that was it for our camping trip. There was one guy camped in his little tent next to us. And when we were like waking up in the rain and trying to figure out what happened, this guy came like running. He was freaked out, and he said, we gotta go, guys." And we're like, "What's going on?" He said he saw a big hairy monster come. He said, "You won't believe me, but I saw a big hairy monster come, put down the camp, and disappear like a ghost." So of course we had no knowledge. We didn't even think about Sasquatch or anything like that back then because we didn't have any information to fit this kind of story in our brain, basically. So, whatever, we kind of tried to dismiss that might have been a native who came, but in the middle of the night in the pouring rain with no flashlight and disappear all of a sudden, no vehicle, nothing. It didn't make sense. We tried to make sense out of it. However, we just picked up our stuff and we had to move in the middle of the night in the pouring rain and dragged our soap packs for a few miles until we found an abandoned house to sleep in. So that was the first close encounter I had with Sasquatch, but it took me many years to connect the dots, to realize what happened that night. And to complete that story, about a week later, because the next day, out of 10, 7 guys just took off and panicked, completely freaked out. And I stayed with 2 other guys. And my purpose to be there was to do a vision quest, because I had met a medicine man that summer who instructed me how to do a vision quest in the Native American way. So I did, fasted and went out on full moon and prayed, and I had my first encounter with a spirit guide that night. So just to connect the two, these 2 events happened within a week. So I see them as very related, because that's when I started on a shamanic path. I had no knowledge, no background, nothing about from my Christian culture about shamanism or spirits or non-human intelligence or nothing like that. All those topics were usually considered as taboo, and you don't touch the supernatural, it's evil, and all that. That's what the education I had. So I started to realize that, because I had also out-of-body experiences in teenage and couldn't find an explanation to any of that. And I realized I started looking into Native cultures and found out that for those ancestral traditions, there's the paranormal, the spiritual world. Supernatural, as we call, is definitely a reality they're aware of and they've been working with. They have a great knowledge about all those phenomena. So that is pretty much what started me to looking into, I would say, shamanic teachings from various tribes. Every tradition is different, but they all have common threads, the common principles and values, and one being the interconnectedness, the interconnection between all life forms. We are part of a greater family of relatives, and this basic teaching and consciousness teaches us that we are interconnected. So what happens to one happens to all. So the best thing we can do is to be caretakers of life. And that's pretty much the basis of what we call native spirituality. That was in '81. That's how it started for me, the whole journey.
very auspicious beginning, having that basically shaking your roof and dropping it on top of you. That's a big welcome.
Yeah.
Or lookout or whatever. It's a wake-up call. You can't ignore that. So I think that was one of those things where you were destined to get some kind of knock up against the head to say there's more going on here to help you be curious. And then the connection with the Native American indigenous culture and their perspective, their outlook on Sasquatch, Bigfoot, I think then propelled you to go the direction you've gone. And you have a website. I want to mention that, sasquatch.com. With the name, was that a name given to you by the tribes? How did you come about that?
Could you just repeat the last question?
The origin of your name, Sunbow, TrueBrother.
Oh, well, that's, there's many traditions, whether native or Vedic, or many spiritual schools. You find or you're given spiritual name or names. There could be more than one. In shamanism, a name is a gift. It's also it has a power. Every word, every name has its own energy, its own meaning, and its own message. So how this name came about, it's the first time, it was in '84. I was in southern Mexico, in Chiapas, and was again in the Vision Quest. That time I was, we left like, 8 or 10 people on an exploration in the jungle, in the wonderful cascades in the Agua Azul. It was much more wilder then. So we were pretty much out in the jungle, and we swam up river for long until one of them, say the leader of our group, the more experienced traveler, took me up to highest waterfall we could reach, and he told me, "Well, this is your place, and stay here, you're gonna have a message." So I just stayed there all day and prayed like we do in Vision Quest, asking for a vision, for a message. And there was first there was a beautiful rainbow over the waterfall, and then looking up, there came a rainbow around the sun, which this is a phenomenon. Most people have seen that sometime in their life, but it was probably the first time for me. And since then, there's been dozens and dozens, if not hundreds of times I've seen that. But that was like a revelation to me at that point. And then I started, chants came to me through, just came through me. Just started singing that song that I didn't know where it came from. And as I started singing, I started hearing voices singing with me, and it went to an angelic core, I can say, a chorus, a huge harmonic ensemble of voices singing with harmonies. And this mantra, which I found out later, was the name of whom they call the Lord of Light, Quetzalcoatl. So that's when, that day after that Vision Quest, I had very intense contact with spirit world, the spirit guides, and I was taught that you're not alone. There's a host of helpers, of guardians, of guides up there that are watching over us. And it's up to us to simply open to their help and to connect with them, to receive their message. And that day they told me, well, your name from now on, your spiritual name will be Sunbow, which is in my language, it means the rainbow around the sun. I know people call that sun dog usually. Or used to, but I've been using Sunbow for over 40 years now. And I've noticed somehow that the word Sunbow has become much more used, and I've seen it like it became in common use, and even I think I saw it in the dictionary at some point. So I guess it was the emergence of that name or that word that I was asked to carry. And from there, of course, I started, it being called Sunbow or Bow. Many friends just know me as Bow because it's, I don't know, it's probably a short or, nickname. But then from then, I continued on my spiritual journey, and I worked with many tribes. I was adopted by the Hopi. I worked for years with the Anishinaabe, so I received several other spiritual names, for instance, in Hopi language or in Anishinaabe Moan. So Sunbow is pretty much the one that I use most often as my writer's name. And where the TrueBrother comes from is because, like I said, we can have several names. So for me, I had other names. It started pretty much the TrueBrother, honestly. It started as a Facebook username because I had used, Facebook can be very restrictive, and there's a lot of censorship. And at some point, they were deleting or chasing people who were using native names 10 years or more back. So I lost 4 profiles. And to make a story short, TrueBrother was simply inspired from the Hopi prophecy. It's a teaching saying that that's a good aim and purpose in life, just to be a true brother or sister, a good relative to all forms of life. So that's pretty much what this name means, why I'm using it.
The Sasquatch Message to Humanity, Conversations with Elder Kamooh. I've got several pages bookmarked. In a nutshell, can you tell us more about the book?
Well, I had, like I said earlier, my first Sasquatch encounter was 41 years ago now. I didn't even realize it was a Sasquatch encounter then. So it took a while. I started, like I said, it started me on a shamanic path or a spiritual quest to understand. That was my main reason for my spiritual quest, to understand what was my experiences, what was happening to me when I was going out of body and seeing entities out there. How come nobody could teach me anything about that? And that's what started me on a spiritual quest when I started going around all kinds of churches and temples and ashrams and learning and taking the teachings here and there and seeing what matched and what sounded, what resonated, what sounded true to me and what did not, and where beliefs take over the truth sometimes and become doctrines and become narrow-minded repetitions instead of based on actual experience and facts. I found after all these teaching, going around for a couple of years, I ended up on Hopi land. And because I had been, after meeting a spiritual teacher who was a very exceptional person, and he told me, out of the blue, he told me, do you know anything about the Hopi? I said, no, who are they? And he told me, well, you should go and check them out. He said he felt I had a connection there and I would find many answers to my questions. So I headed that way, and after a few other meeting teachers and doing vision quests and stuff like that, I ended up on Hopi land in April 83.
Sunbow, TrueBrother, ScenicSasquatch.com. Quick break. ETs, UFOs, Sasquatch, Bigfoot. Back with more. Sunbow, TrueBrother.
Out of the blue, he told me, do you know anything about the Hopi? I said, no, who are they? And he told me, well, you should go and check them out. He said he felt I had a connection there and I would find many answers to my questions. That started another chapter, I can see, because I was very well welcome. I was offered a house to stay with food and everything, given some sacred objects, including my first eagle feather, which came from a ceremonial dress of a Kachina dancer, and prayer feathers to tie when they told me, they gave me the permission to visit certain ancestral sites that were restricted to visitors, and probably are still now. So that was my first contact with the Hopi, and I was invited to a Kachina dance and saw the first Kachina dance of my life there. From their teachings, after that, I started studying deeper in their teaching. Like probably that same year, I read the book of the Hopi, a few other things, and it all started to connect the dots for me, to connect all the different teachings of the world that I had explored into a coherent whole, and filling the gaps for me. For instance, Hopi explained the chakra, the energy bodies we have. They explain the spirit world. They explain the star people. They explain the previous ages of humanity, and with such details and intricacy and huge amount of information that to me made pretty much everything starting to be clear. So from that time on, I returned to Hopi land over 15 times by now. I haven't counted, but I went a few times with groups that I guided there, at least 3 times, including once in 97 when I flew back from Europe with a group of 10 people that I was guiding for a month there in Hopi and Navajo land. But in 87, I went on a vision quest. I did 2 5-day fasts in a cave in a room where hardly anybody ever goes. Even many Hopi don't know that place. I started doing work with spirits and ancestral karma and things like that. It'd be very long to summarize. I can say that in 86 we went a group of people in that very place, 5 of us, and we did some kind of a big exorcism or cleansing. We were attacked by some entities, and we just prayed and sat in circle and prayed for peace to be reestablished. And then after this time of struggle, peace returned, and we looked up, and there was a huge mothership, spaceship, the biggest I've seen so far, probably that I remember, with my physical eyes. I mean, 5 of us were seeing it. It was a flying city with thousands and thousands of windows, lit windows. So I cannot say how big it was, but it was certainly half a mile across, at least. And it turned for one time around us and kind of disappeared or very low behind the little mesa that was the highest point on Hopi land. So we climbed to the highest point, the three of us, and the ship rose again and turned again around us, this time clockwise as opposed to the first time, and then it glided away and disappeared in the sky. So that was a very powerful confirmation and sign that what the spiritual work and cleansing we had done in that place had been noticed, and it was not only a human affair, but a cosmic affair.
The connection between Sasquatch and UFO, alien ET, How do you describe that? How do you explain that?
Well, there is definitely more than a connection. It's the same family. The difference is that the Sasquatch have been living on this planet as caretakers. They are the oldest human people. They have been placed there millions, probably hundreds of millions of years before our human kind. However, our own human, Homo sapiens sapiens, we call a modern man, has just appeared, if we look at official science, much later than many other types of hominins. So we are ourselves a melting pot, because it's been proven now that those hominins, they didn't just succeed each other, they coexisted, they even interbred. So that's why most people outside of Africa have up to 5% Neanderthal genes, and just about every human has between 2 and 5% of Denisovan genes, and on. We're barely starting to scratch the surface with our actual level of knowledge in genetics. But what Chinese geneticists have discovered is that us humans have at least, forget if it's 265 or 365, but it's in this kind of range of number where they found what they call horizontal genes that are external additions to the human genome that were not coming from our direct ancestor, that were introduced in our human genome. So that's just us human. If we take people like Sasquatch who have had like several times the amount of time we've been here, they have had this much more time to diversify into all kinds of hybrids and we can say subspecies or whatever, different types, not only on this planet, multiplied by the number of planets they have been on. Why have they been on all these planets? It's because they didn't lose their connection with the Star Elders. The Star Elders, as I call them, or the Council of Star Elders, or the Star Council. Some people say the Galactic Federation. I don't personally affectionate that term because it's been misused by some. It's up to everyone's consciousness to sort what fits with their own path. Personally, I don't use the Galactic Federation term because first it sounds a little politic, and second, it's beyond galactic. The Hopi master I met 3 times, White Bear, was one of the main sources of the famous book of the Hopi. He was the only human left that was taken aboard ships to sit with the Council of Star Elders. He told us where to look behind his house on Prophecy Rock, actually. The famous Prophecy Rock where the Hopis met. The one they call Masao gave them the stone tablets they carry to this day. One of the 4, anyway. And so White Bear had a collection of old spaceship parts on his front yard. Old petrified pieces of mechanics. You look at it, you say, what is that, And he said, well, there's been spaceship crashes since ages, and we know about those things. And I was on my way with my group the first time I saw him to that ruin I just mentioned earlier, and he said, oh, well, keep an eye, you will find some there. And he was right. Not the first time I went, but I returned to that ruin a few times, and second time I started looking, and there's eventually old pieces of mechanic, petrified, nothing to do with our modern age. It's totally, it's probably way older than we can imagine.
So with that, the Sasquatch and others, transdimensionals, ETs, they disappear and we don't see them, but they're here. How does that work?
Because our consciousness has been trapped into a very thin, small layer of existence we call the physical world. Modern science admits that's so far as far as we know, that the physical world is about 3, maybe 4% of the energy we can perceive and calculate in the universe. That means there's another 96, 97% of the energy that we cannot see or hear with our physical senses. Probably with practice and with paranormal extrasensory perceptions. Some people do. We probably all can if we practice and develop those skills. So why do they appear and disappear? Simply because they understand the fabrics of the universe. They understand that at a certain frequency, for instance. Well, let's take like simple, tangible examples. Anything that goes faster than the speed of light, vibrates faster than the speed of light, is not visible to us because first, light, the speed of light is the limit of linear time. I mean, everything that goes from A, B, C, from a beginning to an end, happens below the speed of light in what we call the physical world. If we go faster than the speed of light, time disappears. First, light doesn't reach anymore, so it cannot reflect. So that means also matter disappears and it turns into pure energy. And can even travel in time because it's been, physics that if you go faster than the speed of light, you can go around the universe and come back at the same point before you left. So that means you will travel in past. So this is not things I'm making up. People who want to study physics and they can all find these information. It's not made widely publicized because the more we understand the fabric of the universe, the more we understand how we've been trapped in this little box they call the physical world, and even itself, because that's we can say the matrix that is easily controllable. If we get stuck in this little box, we can go through the walls basically. But if we realize that this is just one aspect of existence. This is just a holographic projection of the information that is beyond linear time, which means like if you have a computer disk or a hard drive and you got a whole movie on it, let's say, the information is always there, past, present, and future. The beginning and the end of the movie are always there. When you play it, it goes into linear time. You start following the story out, it unfolds. That's the player is the physical world. It is where this holographic information is this information is projected into a holographic, some say 3D, I say 4D movie because there is a time in it, timeline. So that's just like a very quick glimpse in a nutshell how the physical realm has its limit, but existence itself has none. There's consciousness is a non-local phenomenon. They can't even find where it's sitting in our brain or if it is at all. We have all those studies of out-of-body experiences or after near-death experiences. that show that consciousness is not limited or restricted to the brain or body, and it continues beyond. So when we consider all those facts, it's not theories at this point. There's enough proof and evidence that have been done. Even when someone dies, the body loses something like half an ounce, 14 grams or something, of what is that? It's a substance. It's when the soul goes, the body loses something which is calculable. So that's what I call, that's what they explained to me, the astral body, which is, or the alter body, because it's alter matter. It's another matter that is much more subtle, but it can be measured and calculated. So that's how they can not only disappear and appear, they can materialize and dematerialize, they can teleport, and they can even materialize other objects or things. And this kind of powers that seem, unbelievable to an ultra-rational mind have been documented forever, ever since there's human, through spiritual masters and shamans and mystics, and that can appear and disappear and teleport and bilocate and all these kinds of things, because when consciousness stops being trapped into the physical plane, the possibilities are infinite.
There's an incredible story we get into that's in part 2. This has to do with an elder Native American who was approached by an ET, alien, and I'll let you listen for the description of that, who has a wounded Sasquatch and asked to heal the Sasquatch. More on that coming up in the interview with Sunbow TrueBrother.